I am Ayub Abdikadir Abdi. My sign language interpreter tonight is Joyce Wamwangi. The Wednesday directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta to suspend the full reopening of schools across the country till January next year is eliciting mixed reactions, with parents now stuck between the rising cases in schools and the missed school year because of the pandemic. Many of those who spoke to remain divided over where the children will be the safest. Zamza Mohammed with more.
Good afternoon, everybody.
In his opening remarks on Wednesday, President Kenyatta said that schools would remain open for classes that had preached about the level of preparedness of Standard 8 and Form 4 candidates, adding on to the fact that the school calendar had been thrown into disarray. Parents too are anxious, with concerns about promotions of students to the next class having been disrupted.
Ikiwa wale watoto wako nyumbani na hao wanaenda kufanya mtihani, hao wanaenda kufanya mtihani wanaenda kujoin shule kwa nchi gani, na wale wanaenda kurepeat kwa shule kwa nchi gani?
Parents continued voicing their concerns on the reopening of schools in fear of their children being affected by the virus that is still at large, throwing the country into a spin.
Hatuna furaha kwa sababu watoto wetu wale wamebaki shule. Hatuna uhakika na usalama wao. Watoto wetu wale wako nyumbani. Hatuna uhakika na vile watakavyofuatilia mtaala wa elimu na wakaweza.
A mountain of troubling data about rising mental health problems has seen experts worried about the need for additional support for struggling students and the ability of parents to provide for them.
Syllabus uwezi jua unaenda wapi, unasoma nini, unaweza soma chem, usome nini, but ikifika place fulani unapata umechanganyikiwa, cause haujui unaenda mbele ama unarudi nyuma.
However, another group of parents approve of the president's directive, some even adding on that all schools needed to be reopened.
Corona kwa kijiji na kwa shule wapi iko safe? Mimi nafikiri kwa shule iko safe. Juu kwa kijiji kama hii barabara ni watu 1000. Kwa hivyo mtoto akipita hapa ndio atapata corona. Kwa hivyo kwa shule watoto ni wale. Na wale watoto wanaenda shule, wale wako sijui class 8 form 4. Si watarudi tena nyumbani kama kuna corona huko, sisi bado tutawape. Kwa hivyo nilikuwa naonelea shule zote zifunguliwe.
This topic has proved to be a headache for many parents, especially after the confirmation that 68 students and 5 teachers from Bahati Girls Secondary School tested positive for the coronavirus by Nakuru Deputy Governor Dr. Eric Korir a month after Form 4 candidates resumed studies.
The school is not closed. The school is on. The students are actually in quarantine in school. So they are quarantined, about 115 of them. The 68 of them who tested positive are in stable condition. They have no problem. It's only one child who was brought to Nakuru level 5 who developed some complication, but the rest they are okay.
Now, just a day after President Uhuru Kenyatta announced a new raft of measures to curb the spread of the coronavirus pandemic, the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, has further announced the enforcement of coronavirus protocols and regulations. The enforcement of the protocols by the IGP will see the National Police Service take the law into their hands should any Kenyan be found on the wrong side of the law and the restrictions meant to curb the spread of the contagion. Here's that update by Diana Rachel Mbogo.
Kenyans should brace themselves for tough times ahead as Wednesday's COVID-19 protocols and regulations announcement by President Uhuru Kenyatta will now be enforced by the National Police Service. Through a statement, Inspector General Hilary Mutyambai says the National Police Service will work closely with national government administration officers and county government enforcement teams to ensure total compliance with the Ministry of Health guidelines and protocols to contain the further spread of the virus. Further, all police officers across the country have been instructed to enforce the COVID-19 protocols and regulations in strict compliance with the rule of law. Mutyambai has further directed the National Police Service officers to enforce curfew orders from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. without fear or favor and with strict adherence to the standard operating procedures. Owners of restaurants, bars and any other places open to the public have also been advised to be closed by 9 p.m, failure to which the National Police Service shall support county governments to close down the places. Diana Rachel Mbogwa, Ebru TV.
Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi this afternoon made an about-turn by supporting the Building Bridges Initiative report ahead of the referendum in 2021. Mudavadi's quick move comes after President Uhuru Kenyatta and the ODM party leader allies hinted at no plans to make amendments to the report that was presented about a fortnight ago at the Bomas of Kenya in Nairobi County. And as our political affairs reporter Jeff Khaimba puts it, the majority leader in the National Assembly, Samuel Pogisho, has further dismissed threats by a section of pastoralist community leaders who vowed to boycott the BBI document after their demands were ignored in the report.
Even as the government intensifies the measures to curb COVID-19 pandemic, Western leaders have vowed to hit the road running in popularizing the BBI document ahead of the referendum. The more than 20 members of parliament drawn from different political parties during a media briefing in one of the hotels in Nairobi unanimously agreed to support the BBI document in a statement presented by Kandui Member of Parliament Wafula Munyenye and Emmanuel Wangwe of Navaholo.
This team supports the BBI. We want to really be part of the process of the BBI, and it's our time to join to make this country a better country, to be in forever.
And we have agreed we're going to working with other leaders to come up with strategies in our area to popularize this document.
The address by the Western leaders comes at the backdrop of divisions in drumming up support the BBI campaigns in the country. Musalia Mudavadi of the ANC party had earlier on made several reservations in regard to the BBI document, made a quick about-turn on Thursday by declaring full support. Ayub is the ANC deputy party leader.
We had an ANC parliamentary group attended by the party leader, Musalia Mudavadi. He had done consultation at high levels. The issues that ANC had raised, which includes improving on the powers of the Senate, the ombudsman issue appointed by the executive, but in charge of the judiciary. Those issues, there are consultation going on at a higher level, and we are briefed by the party boss, who is in consultation with the President of the Republic and Raila Amolo Odinga. So we resolved yesterday as ANC to fully support this process because you have been accommodated.
Since the report was launched at the Bomas of Kenya, there has been massive lobbying with President Uhuru Kenyatta and the opposition chief Raila Odinga taking the lead. On Thursday, a group of the pastoralist leaders threatened to lead no campaigns against the document after their proposals were rejected. However, on Thursday, majority leader in the Senate Samuel Pogisho took a swipe at the counterparts accusing them of misleading the community.
I believe that pastoralists will benefit a lot in the BBI process.
We do not want people to use the name pastoralist to mislead or incite pastoralist communities against others.
Purporting that this document is coming to weaken institutions, let us be true to Kenyans.
Samuel Pogisho has now dared the Mandera Governor Ali Roba-led faction to go on and oppose the BBI campaign.
And this document is here to help bring pastoralists out of their suffering and to protect them.
As far as the pastoralists, especially the people of Narok, are concerned, this BBI is actually safeguarding our lands.
Kwa hivyo nashangaa wengine wakiingiza mambo ambayo hata nyingine ni policies, utaratibu. Mtu anasema anaelekta pale anasema haikuwekwa kwa katiba, ilikuwa itawekwa namna gani? Kwa hivyo ni vyema tuweze kuangalia. Nina uhakika sisi jamii ambao toka kwa wafugaji, kuna wengine wetu ambao ni mawakili pia watusaidie kuwafahamisha wale wengine. Isije wengine wakashikwa na ile mshiko wa wale ambao wanapiga siasa ya pesa 8 halafu tuweze kupoteza.
The remarks by Pogisho comes even as the Jubilee Party Vice Chairperson David Murathe claims there is no window of making the amendment to the released BBI report.
Nothing has had public participation like this process of this task force, all right? And that is why we are thinking it should not be possible to reopen that document. Are we clear? And people will vote yes or no. Sasa wewe kama huko no, uende umobilize. Na sisi ambao tuko yes, tuende to mobilize. Tutakutana kwa debe.
a political show dust is looming ahead of the referendum, even as the both comes dust each other in the yes or no campaigns. Reporting for Ebru TV, I'm Jeff Haemba.
The coronavirus infections continue spiking each day, with the latest tally seeing at least 1,008 infections reported by the Minister of Health in the last 24 hours. In a statement to newsrooms, the 1,008 new infections were drawn from a sample size of more than 6,000, bringing the caseload in the country to 59,595, the number of confirmed infections in the country since March, when the first case of the pandemic was recorded. Another 802 patients recovered from the disease, 679 of them from the home-based care program, while 123 were discharged from various hospitals across the country, taking recoveries to 39,193. The country, however, lost 21 patients to the disease, bringing the caseload of those who have died with the virus to 1,072. Now, Tanzania's President John Pombe Magufuli has taken the oath of office for a second 5-year term that will end in 2025 amid tight security after the opposition called for boycott and fresh election, also calling for the disbandment of the Electoral Commission (NEC), an endless peaceful demonstration over the October 28 vote. Magufuli over the weekend said he will not pursue another term amid some concerns after the ruling party Chama cha Mapinduzi, which won nearly all parliamentary seats, might try to extend reportedly the presidential term limit in the constitution. Police and the army tightened security ahead of the swearing-in ceremony in Dodoma, and the leader of Tanzania's two main opposition parties, ACT Wazalendo and Chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo Chadema, were charged with organizing unlawful assembly and demonstration. The opposition arrests that of the election was riddled with irregularities and claims that were also backed by the United States and other international community members who have noted that the elections were not credible. That calls for the vote result and the country's democratic ideals into question and the credibility of the electoral vote done by the National Electoral Commission.
Mimi John Pombe Joseph na hapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania na kuitumikia kwa moyo wangu wote, na kwamba nitaifanya, nitailinda na kuitetea katiba ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania kwa mujibu wa sheria iliyowekwa. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu nisaidie. Wengine mlioko hapa, mabibi na mabwana na ndugu zangu wana Dodoma na Watanzania mnaonisikiliza, asalamu alaykum. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Tumsifu Yesu Kristo. Siku kama ya leo tarehe 5 Novemba mwaka 2015 niliapishwa kuiongoza taifa letu kwa kipindi cha miaka 5 iliyopita. Leo tarehe 5 Novemba 2020, miaka 5 kamili baadaye, nimeapishwa tena kuliongoza taifa letu kwa kipindi cha miaka 5 ijayo. Ninamshukuru sana Mungu. Lakini tofauti na mwaka 2015 ambapo niliapishwa jijini Dar es Salaam kwenye uwanja wa Uhuru, mara hii nimeapishwa katika uwanja wa Jamhuri katika jiji hili zuri la Dodoma, ambako ndio makao makuu ya nchi. Ninalishukuru sana hili. Nalishukuru sana hili kwamba nimekuwa rais wa kwanza kuapishwa katika jiji hili zuri la Dodoma. Hivyo basi, kwa moyo wa unyenyekevu mkubwa, napenda kumshukuru sana Mwenyezi Mungu, Muumba wetu, aliyetujalia uhai na kutuwezesha kuiona siku ya leo. Aidha, kwa moyo wa dhati kabisa, napenda niwashukuru sana Watanzania wenzangu kwa kuniamini na kunipa dhamana hii kubwa ya kuliongoza taifa letu kwa kipindi kingine cha miaka 5. Na washukuru pia Watanzania kwa kukipa ushindi mkubwa chama changu, Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM. Lakini kama nilivyosema wakati nakabidhiwa cheti cha ushindi na mwenyekiti wa tume. Ushindi huu sio wa wana CCM peke yao, ni ushindi wa Watanzania wote. Nitumie fursa hii kurudia kuipongeza sana Tume ya Taifa ya Uchaguzi kwa kusimamia vizuri zoezi la uchaguzi wa mwaka huu. Aidha, nawashukuru tena viongozi wetu wa dini kwa kutuongoza vizuri kwa dua na sala katika kipindi chote cha uchaguzi, na hatimaye tumeweza kumaliza uchaguzi wetu salama. Vile vile na vishukuru vyombo vyetu vyote vya ulinzi na usalama kwa kufanya kazi vizuri na kwa uweledi mkubwa ambao umewezesha amani na usalama kutawala katika kipindi chote cha uchaguzi. Hongereni sana kwa vyombo vyetu vya ulinzi na usalama. Kwa namna ya pekee kabisa, narudia kuwashukuru na kuwapongeza sana Watanzania kwa kuonyesha utulivu mkubwa katika kipindi chote cha uchaguzi. Kama mjuavyo, kwenye baadhi ya nchi uchaguzi umekuwa chanzo cha uhasama, migogoro na vita. Sisi Watanzania kwa mara nyingine tumevuka mtihani huo salama, na hivyo kuthibitisha ulimwengu kuwa sisi Watanzania ni wapenda amani na tumekomaa kidemokrasia. Na hii ni ishara nyingine, ndugu zangu, kwamba Mwenyezi Mungu analipenda sana taifa letu.
And back at home, the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, has today appointed officers for the Special Enforcement Unit as directed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. However, the move comes as being castigated by a section of activists who maintain that the move could see police officers use excessive force in the implementation of the directives meant to control the spread of the pandemic.
So far, politicians have been responsible for the huge numbers we've recorded during the second wave. Yet, despite their continued public gatherings and rallies, police have done absolutely nothing to contain their spread of this disease. So we are urging the government to call off the SEU, and if they feel we must have the SEU, then it must engage all actors.
Instead of the police officers handling people with care, knowing that they are living with the stress because of economic crisis, because since COVID-19 landed in this country, businesses have gone down. They are busy making business out of the poor people. When they find somebody without a mask, what they are asking for is 100 shillings, 200 shillings. Last week we lost a life in Isaika, whereby somebody was running away from the police and was knocked by a matatu.
Kumekuwa na special units ambazo zimekuwa zimeformiwa kitambo kama the Kwekwe Squad. Sasa sisi tunajiuliza ni tofauti gani ya hii special unit na zile Kwekwe Squad ambazo zimekuwa zikiformiwa ambazo zimemaliza vijana katika maeneo duni.
Sasa Kenya tumeona Nigeria manze inatutishia sisi wenyewe. Sisi kama vijana, sisi kama Wakenya, Kenya tumeona Nigeria ni kitu yenye hatutaki ifanyike hapa.
Now, as the world attention turns on the United States of America, here's what's coming up on your screens in regards to the November 3 elections. Charles, can we have the mapping on your end? And this is the live coverage, and this is Al Jazeera's Jamal El Shayal reporting from Delaware, that is in the United States of America. The live coverage continues of the elections that happened on Tuesday. And on the right end of your screen, up top, that is the Electoral College vote. As you can see, Joe Biden 264 against Donald Trump's 214. Of course, Biden is now left with about 6 Electoral College votes to hit the magic number 270 to be elected the President of the United States of America. And this is the engagement by Al Jazeera English of an analyst from North Carolina. And in the studio in Doha is Al Jazeera's, that is a news anchor who at the moment is covering that live. And this, of course, is an ongoing global attention that continues to be on the United States of America in regards to an election that was marred by, of course, nationalistic tone and accusations of Donald Trump advancing of fascism and what they say is a threat to American democracy. Later, we'll be talking to Jafeth Kavinga Kaluyu, who is the 2017 presidential contender and is in Washington, will be crossing over live to him later on the broadcast, as we also take a look at the rest to White House 2020 and of course not forgetting at home the political pause as a result of the pandemic and what it means for the political establishment, despite the roadmap that was drawn by the proponents of the BBI in the referendum that is set to be happening by April 2021. We get some business news, and poultry farmers in the county of Kiambu have decried low prices. They have been forced to sell their eggs, saying they are incurring major losses. The disgruntled farmers say their predicament has been brought about by middlemen who reap big from their hard work. They are now calling on the government to intervene and formulate policies that will reduce production cost for them to be profitable, as Winnie Lubembe now tells us.
Lewis Miner, who has been in the business for over 5 years now, says poultry farming was a very profitable business that he decided to quit his job.
Niko na kuku kama 1,000 na niko na plani ya kuongeza nifike angalau 2,500. Kwa hizo kuku 1,000 na napataga kama kitu 950 eggs. That is about 900 eggs. Hiyo ni kitu litre ngapi? Divide by 30 trays. Hiyo ni about 30 trays na collect kila siku.
However, the situation has changed to now where he is incurring major losses due to high cost of production and the COVID-19 pandemic making the situation worse.
Bei ya mayai imeshuka mpaka imekuja 270. Kumaanisha kwa kila tray inanibakishia shilingi 5. Kwa hiyo shilingi 5 niko na kijana wangu wa kazi, nafikiri mmemwona akiokota mayai. Niko na stima nalipa, niko na maji. Sasa nikifanya hesabu yangu ni kumaanisha hiyo shilingi 5 inaisha na kulipa mshahara, nalipa na kulipa stima na maji. Kwa hivyo nafanya kitu inaitwa break even. Inaingia na inatoka yote.
Ann Wanjiku, the chair lady of Kiambu County Poultry Farmers, says many farmers have been forced to venture into other businesses to meet their families' needs.
Babu shida yetu ni hiyo mambo ya mayai na chakula. Mayai na chakula ya kuku, hiyo ndio inatuaffect sana. Sasa mayai yetu inaweza simamia at least 300 per tray. Isiende chini, hata isipande ikalia hapo. Hiyo inaweza saidia kila mtu. Na ikiwa hapo sisi hatuna hasara, tutasimama na tutaendelea.
Their biggest concern is that the government has neglected poultry farmers and instead focused on boosting other farmers.
Tumeonelea kwamba minister wetu ambao tunampenda sana, CS Munya, ameongea sana mambo ya kahawa na amefanya vizuri sana. Tumeona hiyo sekta inaanza kusimama. Tumeona ameingilia sana upande wa majani chai na tumeona imeendelea vizuri sana. Ombi letu kama wafugaji wa kuku ni akuje aingilie hii sekta ya poultry.
Their plea is that through the recently launched BBI, the government will look into formulating favorable policies to support them.
Some of these things, kulima inakuwa gharama kubwa sana. Why? Taxi yenye wanaweka kitu kama fertilizer na vitu zingine na bei yetu ya kuuza, all that watupunguzie tax. Ndio ama waifanye tax free kwa kitu yoyote inahusikana na ukulima.
Winnie Lubembe for Ebru TV.
Now, the directive by the government that all flour should be blended with sorghum as a measure to address food security in the country and nutrition requirements has pushed up demand for the cereal. This has forced the country to import the cereal from neighboring countries such as Uganda and Tanzania. And it means that with local farmers now unable to meet the rising demand in the country, there are concerns as to how this will be attained despite the government directive.
According to data from the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research, the country's annual production stands at 206,000 metric tons despite the high potential. This is against the demand of 270,000 metric tons as consumers shifted from over-reliance of maize as the country's main staple food.
Currently, we produce about 206,000 metric tons. The demand is 270,000 metric tons. So there's a deficit of about 70,000 metric tons. And we expect that gap to grow unless we use modern methods of farming, sorghum, unless we use modern varieties that have been developed that are high yielding, unless we reduce post-harvest losses. Then we cannot be able to bridge that gap.
According to Ayub Kireger, the country had the potential of increasing sorghum production through improved farming. According to him, the research institution had already developed a variety that had the capability of producing 8 tons per hectare from the current 1 ton.
And recently, the government has passed a regulation whereby it will be a requirement to blend wheat flour and maize flour with sorghum. So we expect that the consumption of sorghum will go up, the demand of sorghum will go up. Our current production is about 0.5 to 0.9 metric tons per hectare. Yet the potential that we have is up to 8 tons per hectare. The reason why farmers are not getting that level is because they are using the wrong seed, they are using the wrong management practices because they are not aware.
Speaking in Naivasha, Kireger lauded the government directive that all flour in the country be blended, noting that this had pushed demand for the cereals. He added that farmers were using sorghum to produce aflasafe, a fungus that is biologically controlled by aflatoxin in maize.
We have a product that we have developed to control aflatoxin in maize and peanuts. It is called aflasafe, KE01. And the main ingredient of that product is sorghum. Sorghum is the carrier. So as the production of aflasafe increases, we expect also that we will require more volumes of sorghum to be able to meet the demand of aflasafe for the farmers. So that's another avenue for creating market for sorghum, which will ensure that farmers are able to sell their products, get an income, get some money.
Kireger said that the research institution had embarked on the process of training farmers in 10 counties. Currently, farmers from West Pokot, Kericho and Baringo counties are undergoing training in the research firm in Naivasha on better ways of producing sorghum.
We actually need some policies in place to ensure that the youth can get into not only value addition, but also production of sorghum. Because we know that our farmers are decreased. They have decreased from 100% at independence, and by 2030, only 38% of the Kenyan population will be doing farming. If it's only 38%, and most likely they'll be young. Right now, the average age of farmers is 60. By 2030, the average age might be about 40. So when it's 40, what will be happening? It will be a mechanized era, where everything will be done using mechanization. So you'll have a family growing 1,000 acres, and it's just 5 people working the farm because of mechanization.
Dr. Lusike Wasilwa said that sorghum could produce over 50 products ranging from flour to soap. She said that they were using the value additional chain to attract more youth in the production of assorted products from the produce. Abdikadir Hashim, Ebru TV.
And the Football Kenya Federation has extended the deadline dates for the primary registration and transfer period initially slated for November the 2nd, 2020. The window will now close on Friday, November the 6th, 2020. The registration transfer window for the club that retains its position and gains promotion into FKF Premier League has moreover been extended to Friday, November 13, 2020. International transfers, however, will have to be executed by midnight on November the 2nd, 2020, as had been initially scheduled. The top tier FKF Premier League is tentatively scheduled to kick off on November 21, 2020. Also, English that is side Chelsea and the champions Barcelona in 2015 have also recorded wins, while other matches are played tonight in the UEFA Europa League. That is the end point of the primetime news. Coming up next is News Compass, and we'll be talking to Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu, who was the 2017 presidential contender and is in Washington, D.C., who will be talking to us about the American perspective of the elections that happen on 3rd November 2020, and the impact that has for the global community and the outcome that is likely going to change the landscape. Alongside him will also be Professor Joseph Mburu, who will be joining us from Regina in Canada. And afterwards we'll be talking about back at home, the Building Bridges initiative, whether it can be the address point of the plethora of problems that have always bedeviled the country and dotted the establishment since multi-party democracy in 1991. After the break on the broadcast.